Yeah.
There are no new ideas under the sun. Well, what is one of the... we've talked a lot about what you like about the job and what you don't like. The idea that you're walking up to computer tape.
All the day, but you know, with light day, so we can't finish
with daylight.
late.
So you have to film during the day.
Yeah. Okay. So we can't finish late. But in fact, we don't start early as well, because if you go to the street, there's no people with time at 8 in the morning. They are all hurried to go to their works. So you have to try to find the people that is not hurry.
So people that are not on their way to work, because they're not going to stop and talk to you,
just
or maybe
walking, or
even when people are on their way to lunch, they don't want to stop and talk to you.
Yeah.
Well, now, what would be your plan if you're really serious about wanting to be, you know, an actress, either in television or movies? Do you have an idea about how you could get this going? I mean, do you have an agent, or how do people do this here? Do they send their headshots off to different agencies?
It's so difficult.
Yeah.
It's so difficult. Don't know. Yeah, I suppose I should have an agent, but I think it's better that the agent choose you. You know, because this way, he shows, well, he or she watch you, see you in the TV or in a movie or wherever, and then he thinks, I would like to take this girl and going up with her, because I think she can do. And then he puts his confidence on you, and then he makes.
So it's the whole notion of being discovered,
yeah.
Which is your odds for success in that are based on luck too much, and maybe
I think it doesn't depend on you.
Well, it depends more on I suppose, just being in the right place at the right time and having somebody notice you. And you can't rely on that. What about using the format that a lot of my friends use, which is YouTube, or one of the internet sites where people post their videos? Some people have become famous by putting their little homemade movies on YouTube. In fact, I think there are channels for certain people that have been very creative. That's a new opportunity that didn't exist when I was your age.
I haven't done it yet. Maybe I'll do it. I don't know.
I guess you need a friend that you can trust with a camera.
Yeah. No, I have a lot of friends. You know, I'm working on TV. I have a lot of camera friends, so.
I saw this guy who was doing, just a comedian, a local comedian from, I believe he was American, but I don't remember. He was doing a lot of different characters, like impersonating different stereotypes. Like he did a Latino guy, and he did different people from all over the world. And when I was bored one night, I was looking through comedy. I was thinking, I feel like being entertained tonight. So I had my computer out, and I thought, well, I'll go to the comedy channel. And I just saw this guy by accident. I'd never seen him before, but he was really talented. And then I went back to YouTube, and I found that this guy had his own following of fans, people that were waiting for him to create his next homemade little video. And it looked like he was doing it in his living room. He just set up a camera and he was just putting himself in front of the camera, and then he was playing both parts. So in one of the skits that he did, he was playing a guy from Human Resources who was interviewing potential job applicants. And of course, they were really strange people. They weren't normal, business type applicants. And so it was really clever how he did it. He was so good at playing different people. He was quite a good actor, that he was playing the one guy, the human resource fellow, and then this other group of 8 or 9 people. And I showed that to some students that I was teaching English to this past summer, and they loved it. Now, they didn't understand every single character, but they said, this is a great way to even learn English, because it's funny, it's entertaining. I mean, there's so many ideas.
Yeah. You only have to put it on the air. Yeah.
Well, and one thing, before you came on the air with me today, you were worried about English. You kept saying, I'm so worried about my English, I'm so worried about my English. But really, what I found is that after talking to you for a while, and the fact that you lived in Oxford for almost
Almost a year.
Almost a year. That your English is good, that you've probably forgotten vocabulary.
Yeah. You know, it's been a long time since I speak a word. So I was afraid to forget my vocabulary. I try to not forget reading or by watching TV, but you always say, it's been a long time without trying to go this way or another, just to not be quiet and speak English.
Well, because it's a passive activity to read or to listen to another language.
Yeah.
For me personally, that's I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's not that challenging.
Yeah.
I find that when I'm not being forced to speak Spanish on a regular basis, being forced.
Yeah, but
when I don't have to speak.
You are forced because you have to answer, and they are waiting for your answer, and it's like, I have the words, but I can think now.
It's like the telephone when you called me last night, and I could tell that you were like, oh, you know, this is I'm kind of nervous. But then when we got in the car, it was much easier because we could see each other, of course. Yeah. And this happened to me last night when some people from the television station called me on my cell phone. And of course, it has a lot to do with the fact that I was tired. I'd been working all day, and my brain was kind of not as alert as it could be. And it was so funny because the girl I was talking to felt the same way about speaking in English. So all of a sudden, we were talking on the cell phone. Marta was trying to speak in English. I was trying to speak in Spanish, and all of a sudden it was just quiet. And we just didn't say anything. And she said, I'm very tired, and I'm afraid I can't speak. And I said, why don't we communicate by email? So she said, all right. So then after that phone call, I went home, went back up to my flat, got in front of the computer, and there was an email from her. And I was like, oh, this is much more comfortable. I feel like we can communicate so much easier. Yeah. It is challenging. And I think you're very brave to come on television and speak in English after not speaking for so long. Yeah. Maybe you could start speaking in English for this interview show that you do, this On the Street. You could call it, you know...
English in the streets.
English in the streets. Well, that's not a bad idea. And instead of going up to Spanish people to ask them what their opinion is of Madrid, you could go up to people who look like they don't speak Spanish. Yeah. Tourists.
There are a lot of people.
Well, yes, there certainly are.
I've been around the museums, and the half of the people answer me like, I'm sorry, I can't answer. I don't speak Spanish.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, this is a perfect way.
I have to say, then I look for you.
I'm looking for you. Yeah. You can practice your English that way. Yeah. You could also hang out around Seoul, hang out around the museums, hang out around sort of the giri bars.
Oh, the giri.
You know, the giri bars where you, like Irish bars. Yeah. I mean, how many people are speaking Spanish in most of the Irish bars in Madrid? Yeah. Probably not that many. I don't know. I think this could be fun. I want to talk to you more about this because there are so many ideas that people have, and they don't take them beyond the idea phase. They think, oh, that would be a great idea, but then you have to figure out how to get it from point A to point B. Yeah. I don't know. Well, Mila, thank you so much for coming here and trying to relax. I know it's stressful, but I think you've done quite well. I'm sure Gonzalo's really proud of you.
I'm sure about that as well.
Oh, I don't know if you have time to tell the birthday story. How much time do we have left? A minute, 2 minutes? Just 1 minute. You had a surprise birthday party for him.
Yeah, the day he came here, I have a surprise, a birthday surprise.
The day that Mila's boyfriend was here in my living room, was that his actual birthday?
No, it was the next day.
His birthday was the next day, and he didn't tell me that. And Mila surprised him with a birthday party with 70 people. Yeah. And I have to talk to him about that. I didn't know that first of all, that it was his birthday the next day. Yeah. Of course, some people don't like to talk about that.
Yeah, he was a little scared because he was turned 30, and next level. So he was.
Oh, I wish I were 30 again. Wouldn't that be great? Mila, thank you so much for coming to the show.
It was
nice to meet you, and I hope you enjoyed today's segment. We'll be back with you shortly for more. So stay tuned. Adios, amigos and amigas. We'll be right back.
eres universitario o joven adulto, quiero hablarte del MIP, de nuestro Máster en Inglés Profesional. Cada año 50.000 jóvenes recién licenciados salen al mismo tiempo en busca de su primer empleo. ¿Eres uno de ellos? ¿Vas a ser pronto uno de ellos? ¿Cómo te vas a diferenciar de los demás, de los 50.000 competidores? ¿Cómo vas a conseguir no ser uno más del montón? Yo llevo casi 40 años aquí, enseñando inglés a directivos de empresa y haciendo pasillos. Y sé que cuando un joven con el inglés resuelto entra por la puerta de una empresa, casi se lo rifan entre los diferentes departamentos. Con el inglés resuelto, tu cotización subirá 100 veces. Y con nuestro MIP, nuestro Máster en Inglés Profesional, te daremos el inglés que quieres. Pero sobre todo, te daremos el inglés que ellos tanto necesitan.
Okay, guys, well, we're going to take it to the streets. Nos vamos a la calle to see if our friends in Zaragoza have a good English level or not. But I'm not going to put you to the test. No way. My friend, that crazy guy over there, Richard Brown, he's going to put you to the test.
Okay, Pilar, how do you say, ¿cómo se dice? ¿De dónde eres?
Where are you from?
Where are you from? 10 points. ¿Cómo se dice en inglés? Me gustaría tener un uniforme como el tuyo.
I'd like to have a uniform like yours.
Wow, very good.
You deserve a book.
She deserves it. Se lo merece.
Number 65.
¿Quieres hablar inglés de una vez por todas y no puedes ir al extranjero? Pues haz que el extranjero venga a ti. Vaughan Town es el primer programa de inmersión en el que podrás interactuar con nativos de varios países y acentos.
It's not like going to school. It's a way where you interact, and it's interaction. There's different ways of interacting, but it's mainly interacting with people.
Durante una semana en cualquiera de nuestras ubicaciones te comunicarás solo en inglés, hasta mejorar todas las habilidades del idioma y todo en un entorno natural.
What I found is that in 3 days, not even a week, but only in 3 days here, you get the same results that in 3 weeks in Boston or Australia or whatever other Anglo country.
Con nosotros aprenderás el inglés real.
I'm more confident now. It's not the same the first one-to-one but the last one-to-one. At the beginning, I think in Spanish and translate in my mind to speak in English. But at the end, for example, now the English is automatic in my mind and I get to speak.
No pongas más excusas. Ataca tu asignatura pendiente y deja tu aprendizaje en las mejores manos. Si quieres más información sobre Vaughan Town o cualquiera de nuestros cursos, llama al 91 133 5833. Two and Two, Mad Boy and Company, Kids Club y Let's Play acompañarán a los peques de la casa todos los días de 9:30 a 10:30 horas y de 17:30 a 18:30 horas, aquí en Vaughan Televisión.
Incómodo, inoportuno,
Inconvenient. Inconvenient.
instalaciones,
Facilities. Facilities.
liarse, confundirse,
To get mixed up. To get mixed up.
logística,
Logistics. Logistics.
manso,
Tame. Tame.
masacre,
Massacre. Massacre.
materias primas,
Raw materials. Raw materials.
notar,
To notice. To notice.
pluma,
Feather. Feather.
Mejor para comenzar a aprender inglés es tener a los mejores profesores. Y con Rumbo al Inglés, desde tu lugar favorito, podrás empezar la tarea con Hannah Cho y Natasha Pascua. Todos los días a las 9 y 17 horas. Aquí en Vaughan Televisión.
Cuando los padres me preguntan ¿cuándo debo iniciar a mi hijo en el inglés? Les digo que desde ya. En nuestra línea junior comenzamos con los niños a los 4 años y año tras año hasta los 17 seguimos con ellos. ¿Objetivo? Comprensión oral y soltura. Comprensión y soltura.
El método Vaughan para niños y para jóvenes se divide en 3 fases. La primera para niños de entre 4 y 7 años, donde abordamos cada temática a través de juegos, canciones, historias y manualidades. La segunda desde los 8 a los 10 años, donde las clases serán temáticas introduciendo el método Vaughan. La tercera fase es a partir de los 10 años, donde se agrupan a los jóvenes por su nivel para que aprendan el método Vaughan de forma íntegra.
Los niños se hacen con el inglés oyéndolo y escuchándolo. Leer, escribir, gramática, eso viene después. Para pasar de un nivel insuficiente de inglés a tener un buen dominio, exige una apuesta fuerte en tiempo, esfuerzo y muchas veces en dinero también. Sin embargo, para los que llegan a buen puerto, el alivio es tremendo y la inversión rentable, muy rentable. Para gente con trabajo y familia, sé que es difícil, pero si está usted dispuesto a hacer la apuesta personal, tendrá en nosotros y en nuestro EMIP un aliado. Eso sí, un aliado realista y exigente, pero un aliado. Alíese con nosotros y con nuestro EMIP, nuestro Executive Master en Inglés Profesional, y le ayudaremos a conseguirlo.
¿Necesitas aprender inglés de una forma rápida y fiable? ¿Eres un profesional con una vida ajetreada, poco tiempo libre y quieres darle un empujón a tu inglés? Pues apúntate a nuestros cursos de inmersión en verano. Con nuestro curso de inmersión conseguirás multiplicar tu comprensión auditiva, ganarás confianza, fluidez y vencerás el miedo escénico a la hora de comunicarte en inglés. Con Vaughan Town saldrás de nuestro pueblo angloparlante mucho más confiado en tu capacidad de comunicación y serás capaz de realizar todo tipo de actividad profesional en inglés con más eficacia. Y nuestros cursos residenciales son idóneos para lograr un rápido aprendizaje del idioma con cursos de 5 días o un fin de semana. Te estamos esperando. Llama al 91 700 1199.
Hablamos de conducta, de educación y de todos los aspectos que influyen en los niños y adolescentes. Todos los días a las 8:30 y 16:30 horas. Vaughan Televisión.
And welcome back to the second half in my living room. As you may notice, I'm by myself now because my guest in the first half, Mila de Miguel, had to go back to work, back to her television job at El Mundo. I enjoyed talking to her a lot, and I think the part about her work on the street, walking up to people and trying to get people to give their opinions about life in Madrid was the most interesting thing. I suppose it's because I can relate to that, and that's one of the things about having conversation with someone that really makes a difference between a conversation that you walk away from going, hey, that was a really interesting 20 minutes I had with that person, or one where you feel as though you didn't really talk about much. I love trying to figure out what it is that I have in common, if anything, with a person that I'm talking to, whether it's on the set here in the studio or at a party, or maybe just talking to somebody who's a friend of a friend. Trying to figure out the thing that you have in common that you can have a shared experience with. I really liked her story about walking around the streets of Madrid, and I can imagine how she really must have felt kind of uncomfortable, especially as a young person, walking up to complete strangers and saying, excuse me for a moment, you know, can I have your opinion on something? What do you do when people walk up to you on the street? Well, I don't know about you watching, but I know that when someone walks up to me very quickly on the street, the first thing I do is kind of step back a little bit to create some space. I'm not typically a fearful person, and I rarely think that somebody is actually going to attack me or hurt me. That's never happened. But I do find that my first reaction is to kind of try to put some space between us so that I can think a little more clearly and wonder who this person is who wants a piece of my time. Most of the time, it's somebody who's asking for directions. They can tell that I'm not Spanish. I don't think I look very Spanish. A lot of tourists ask me for ideas about places to eat in my neighborhood or where the closest metro is. So I'm used to that. It's very, very rare that somebody would actually come up to me and say something that's inappropriate. In fact, I think that's only happened a couple of times since I've lived here. But I could relate to that whole feeling of being a little bit afraid to approach somebody you don't know, mainly because you're afraid of their reaction to you, not because you're afraid to approach them, but you're more worried about how they're going to react to you as a person. Now I'm going to change the subject. I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to go in a completely different direction because I need to talk to you for about 20 minutes in a way that is comfortable for me, where I don't feel like I'm just talking about nothing. So when the guys in the studio said, what are you going to talk about for the second half of the show, because Mila had to leave, I was thinking, what can I talk about? What can I talk about? Well, I've already talked about travel more than I intended to. I've talked enough about my family, more than I intended to. I've talked about my opinions about things that I know about, which is a very limited amount of topics. So now I have to think about something else to talk about. I looked in my backpack and I thought to myself, what do people do when they have time to kill? When you have time to kill, it means you have more time than you know what to do with. So you try to either occupy your mind by reading, or maybe you talk on your cell phone. Maybe you just sit there and try to relax if you're on the metro, if you're in the bus. What I typically do when I have time to kill, is to open my backpack and take out my agenda. Now, my agenda has everything in it that I need to know about work, and it's not very organized. So when you look in my agenda, if you're not me, you probably won't have a very good idea about what's going on in my world. But maybe that's my secret. I don't particularly want people to know. But it makes sense to me. A couple of years ago, when I was back visiting some friends in San Francisco, I bought this agenda, which is a little British, from a British company called Filofax. And I liked it because it was simple, and it has a little elastic band that goes around to hold it together. I also liked the fact that it was about the right size. I've had agendas that were bigger, which were actually too big, and I've had agendas that were too small, and that because I write kind of large, I found it was very difficult to take my pen and try to write in the dates in really, really small letters. So this is about the right size for me. This is my Filofax. And I'm not a real meticulous agenda keeper. Some people have their BlackBerries out and they write down everything that happens to them, every contact, every appointment. They write all of these things down. I'm not very good at that, and I have found that even when I try to write things down, I often don't pay attention. I often don't check my agenda. I try to remember as much as I can because for me it's easier, and since I have a pretty good memory with numbers only, I can remember people's phone numbers. I can remember the time that I'm supposed to be somewhere. I'm not very good about remembering other types of things, but for some reason I can remember numbers very well. Probably having something to do with being a sales representative during a time when we didn't have cell phones. If you could remember your key clients' telephone numbers, when you stopped to go to a payphone, if you could save yourself the time of looking your directory or agenda for the phone number, it made your job a little bit easier. This was a long, long time ago before people had cell phone directories and all of that kind of stuff. But anyway, I was looking in my agenda today in a moment of inspiration to try to find something to talk to you about. And it occurred to me that people keep strange things in their agendas, things that they have no intention of keeping, things that they may never look at again, things that they don't need in order to keep themselves on time or, keep their lives in order. But they're just things that you put in your agenda because you don't know where else to put them. Maybe you have a receipt for something and you don't want to throw it away, but you don't have any pockets. Maybe you're not wearing a coat. Maybe you don't know what to do with it. So what I do, and what many people probably do, is I put all of this stuff in one of the pockets of my agenda. So I was looking through here, and it actually brought back a lot of memories from the past week, memories of being bored, sitting on the metro, trying to occupy my time, trying to kill time, trying to keep my mind busy. I do a radio program 3 days a week, and I take the metro to get to the radio station. It's important that when I get to the radio station that I'm not too relaxed. If my mind is too relaxed or I feel kind of sleepy, it's very hard to switch gears or to go from 0 to 100 in the space of a few minutes while I'm walking to the station. So what I do is try to keep my mind active while I'm going to the radio station so that when I get there, I don't sit in front of the microphone and go, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm going to talk about today. So I try to write things, and one of the exercises that I did one day was this one that maybe some of you have done. I don't know, I found it very helpful. In fact, I'm going to pull some of this stuff out of my agenda just to prove to you how irrelevant so much of it is. I've kept my museum passes for the Vatican Museum. I don't need this. In fact, maybe I'll clean out my agenda at this point in time. It has a picture of the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. I kept it because I liked the picture, not because I wanted to prove that I had been to Musei Vaticani. I also have an old, this is my blood donation card, and I haven't used this for 10 years. Why am I carrying it around still? I have no idea. I didn't know where else to put it. It tells you that my blood type is AB positive. Big deal. But one thing that did help me recently was to go through my work history. And if you're in your 40s like I am, you've probably had a lot of jobs. I don't know, maybe you haven't. Maybe you've only worked for one company or two companies since you've been working. But I've had so many jobs in my lifetime that I decided it was necessary to try to keep track of all of them, just as a mental exercise. And also, I wanted to remind myself of some of the interesting things that I've done. Now, you may be wondering why I've had so many jobs. Not because I'm not employable or have been fired so many times. I think it's due to the fact that I get bored easily. And so, especially when I was a young person and I didn't have a lot of financial obligations, I found that after a year or a year and a half or 2 years at one job, I would get bored and I'd want to change. And so I have here a list of all of the jobs that I've had since I graduated from university. I don't think you want to see this. My handwriting's pretty bad. But it brought back a few memories of bad job experiences I've had and good job experiences. The first real job that I had when I graduated from the University of Kansas was in San Francisco. And I thought this was going to be a great job. I was really, really excited about this. Something Mila said in the first half of the show reminded me of my work in a hotel. You may have remembered that she said in the first half of the show that she met her boyfriend Gonzalo when they were working in Oxford at a hotel there called Four Pillars, I think was the name of it. And it reminded me of a time that I'd worked for a hotel in San Francisco. I worked for the Hyatt hotel chain, and you may know the name Hyatt. They have hotels all over the world. Well, I never considered the option of working in a hotel until I was actually sitting in an interview in front of the general manager of the Hyatt Hotel on Union Square in San Francisco. It doesn't exist under that name anymore, so you won't be able to go to the same hotel, but I think it's still a Hyatt. The first day, or actually the second day that I was in San Francisco, I decided to go job hunting. And I was about 23 years old, 22. I think I was probably 22, maybe 23. And so I got on a bus, and I thought, well, a hotel would be an interesting place to work. It might be kind of fun to do for a while. I always liked going to hotels with my mom, and I thought it would be, entertaining anyway. So the first hotel that I went to was the Hyatt on Union Square, which is a small hotel, not a huge, enormous, resort. It was a small business hotel. And so I decided to go to Human Resources and talk to them about the fact that I was a recent graduate with a degree in English literature and a background in music, and was there any place in the hotel that they thought I might be able to work. So I went down to the Human Resource Department, which in most hotels is in the basement. It's not through the front door, certainly. It's usually a side entrance, and in this particular hotel, you had to walk down into the parking garage to get to the door of the Human Resource Office. It's not a very sexy way to go to work every day, and it's certainly not what most people think about when they think of the experience of working in a hotel. How nice it must be, beautiful environment, you get to go to work in a nice suit. Well, you wouldn't know that from the way that you enter into the Human Resource Department. So when I was walking down there, I thought, this is really not what I want to do. I don't want to work down here. Well, that was where the office was for the interview. Then I had to go up to the second or third floor, to actually interview with the people in the sales department. The Human Resources people thought that I would be a good salesperson. They could tell by my personality and my, I suppose, my bullshitting ability, and also the fact that I was young, I had a lot of energy, that maybe sales would be a good place for a person like me. And I didn't care. To me, it didn't matter whether it was sales or maybe even a job in the kitchen. I just thought it might be fun to work in a hotel. So I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had no idea about sales. I didn't know what selling was all about. I didn't study that when I was in school. So I went up to talk to this guy who was the general manager of the hotel. Or actually, he was the general manager of the sales department. Now, one thing they didn't tell me is that this guy, his name was Stephen, only had one eye. His other eye was artificial. He'd been in an accident or something. So here I'm trying to make a good impression in the interview, and one of his eyes is kind of moving around without, it wasn't in a normal way. Let's put it that way. One of his eyes was clearly not real, but it was moving. And so it wasn't as though it was a glass eye that was in one place. It was an eye that was kind of moving around, and so I wasn't sure where to look. I decided to focus on the middle of his forehead. This was a trick that I'd learned in university by some friends of mine, and they said, look, if you're in an interview and you start to get nervous, focus on the middle of right between the person's eyes. Now, you've probably heard of this before. It's kind of a strange thing to do, but it's true. The person you're talking to has no idea that you're not looking at them in their eyes. They can't tell. You're looking right here. And so I started to do this because it was easier for me, and I wasn't distracted as much by his other eye. Now, he was a really nice guy, and he could tell within about 5 or 10 minutes that I would fit into the sales department, that I had the right, the right personality, the right gift of gab, the right energy. And so I was thrilled because on my very first day of job hunting in San Francisco, in my very first interview, I was offered a job. They called me later that afternoon and asked me if I'd like to start the next day. Now, my friends were impressed because I was making a little bit more money than my friends. I think that job paid about, let's see, this was 1983, and I think I made $16,500 a year salary, which at the time was a pretty good salary. My friends were making about 13 or 14. Well, believe me, I earned the money. It was a really tough job. It wasn't very much fun. The people that I worked with were nice, but the job itself was a difficult one for many reasons. One, I had to start very, very early in the morning, and I didn't have a car. So I had to take a bus through the streets of San Francisco to get there on time. And it was very challenging to make sure I was on time every day. I wasn't used to riding public transportation. My boss decided at some point that he didn't think I had a good enough attitude. I think I must have not been as happy as he expected me to be on a day-to-day basis. So instead of talking to me or trying to figure out what the problem was, there were many problems, but that's another story. He decided that the best approach was to make me come in even earlier. So one day he came to my desk and he said to me, well, Kathleen, I've decided that I want you to be here at 6:30 in the morning. And I said, are you serious? And he said, yeah, I think we need you to start answering the phones at 6:30 in the morning. And I said, but that's a bit early. I mean, how much will the phones be ringing at 6:30 in the morning? He said, well, we have international clients and we have people calling from all over the world. And so I think that, it's good to have you here at 6:30 in the morning. Well, I knew what he was doing. I knew that for some reason I was being punished. I didn't really know why, but it must have had something to do with my attitude. So I didn't have much to say. I started coming in at 6:30 in the morning, and I wasn't very happy about it. But one of the good things was that I was alone from 6:30 until 8:30 when everybody else came to work. So I had 2 hours of solitude and bliss all by myself. And really, to be honest, the phone didn't ring that much anyway, so it didn't really matter. And I got to leave 2 hours early because in the United States, you can't work more than 8 hours a day without being paid overtime. If you work more than 40 hours in any one week, you get time and a half, or what we call overtime. You get your hourly wage plus half an hour more for each hour that you work. So it actually turned out to be a good thing, and I'm glad I didn't complain very much, because I didn't really like being there at 6:30 in the morning, but between 6:30 and 8:30, I didn't work very much, and it was quiet. I got to listen to music, and then I got to leave every day at 3 o'clock. So I was home in the afternoons. I got to go to aerobics classes. In the summertime, it was still daylight when I was finished with work. So in many ways, this turned out to be a good thing. Now, I didn't stay at this job very long because I was fired, which may surprise you. You may think, well, how could, a person that seems so, normal and inoffensive get fired from a job? Well, I did. I was fired. And it wasn't because I did anything wrong. And I can say that to you honestly. I'm not lying. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't steal. I didn't lose my temper. I didn't come to work late. I didn't do any of the things that people get fired for. The problem was a bit more complicated. I was working with this woman named Beth, and I was her assistant. She was 1 year older than me, and she was a sales manager for one of the programs working at the Hyatt Hotel in San Francisco. And I was her assistant, helping her set up meetings for small groups. We set up meeting rooms and sold meeting space for groups of 50 people and less. These were considered small business meetings, not the big business meetings that you see when you go to these huge hotel business meetings where they have to meet in ballrooms or huge theaters. These were intimate meetings, and we had a lot of small rooms for that purpose. And so I worked with Beth for about a month, and we were good friends. I liked her, she liked me, we got along really well. And I think we were doing a pretty good job. We seemed to be keeping all of our business rooms full on a regular basis with meetings. One day she said to me, Kathleen, I'd like to be roommates with you. You're looking for a place to live. I'm looking for a place to live. Why don't we live together? And we can see if we can find a place that's close to work. And I think it would work out pretty well. Well, I said to her, Beth, I don't know. I don't know if it's good to live with people that you work with. I don't know if that's, a good thing. What happens